Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Mind Your Mental podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Raquel Martin, and today we are talking about adultification and dehumanization. Now, I want to talk about them in so many different realms, but always starting off with the definition of what they are, right? So, adultification is the thought process that our youth, our children within the Black community are not children. It's treating them as older. It's treating them as seeing them as less innocent and more adult-like than European American counterparts. And the reason why that's so important is because when our children are seen as less innocent, when they're seen as less deserving of, explanations or appropriate expectations, so many things are impacted. In the school system, it's one of the biggest things. It's one of the reasons why when I see parents on the lookout for schools, whether it's like private school, public school, magnet school, I always tell them to look out for like the discipline policies, because zero tolerance policies disproportionately impact Black youth. And the reason why is because our children aren't seen as children. They're not seen as having developmentally appropriate reactions, right? You're expecting a 10-year-old to have the self-control of a 40-year-old man because you don't see your children as children. And as a result, they get more significant disciplinary practices, even when they're exhibiting comparable behaviors to their like European American counterparts. And zero tolerance policies are notorious for this. So it's because they disproportionately impact Black youth and brown youth. I probably would never send my child to a school that has zero tolerance policies. My children are in public schools, so I don't know how much of a choice I'm going to get. But it is one of the things I tell people to be on the lookout for in the first place. When we think that, and it's not even just individuals who aren't, it's not even just like I always say that oppression and these stereotypes and these things consistently occur like generation after generation, not just because people who don't look like us do them, but because people who do look like us do them, right? So it's not solely the fact that like adultification only happens when a non-Black person is dealing with a Black child. It's the fact that we do it to our children as well. When we perceive them as needing less support and less nurturing and less comfort, then we have more harsher discipline. We have inappropriate expectations. We talk to them with less kindness, and we're not able to rear them in a place of love because they're like, oh, I would expect more from you. It's like I'm 10. Please expect less so that I'm able to grow into the person that you hope for me to become, right? So adultification is that. It's rampant in every single system. It's why, if our children do get involved with like the incarceration system, they're more likely to get greater sentences and less explanations and just seen as like you should know better as an adult, but they're not adults. And then there's also dehumanization. Dehumanization is just the process of depriving our youth of human qualities, humanity. And when it comes to adultification and dehumanization, I refer to it a lot when it comes to youth, but I want you to understand like this happens across the timeline. I think I refer to it a lot with youth is one, my baby's birthday party is in a couple of days. So I keep thinking about babies. I literally was sitting at the kitchen table, talking to them, the dining room table, talking about like the stuff we're ordering for the birthday party. And y'all, I started crying at the dining room table. And you have to understand, like, picture this. All of everybody, all the men in my house look the same. All the boys and the man, they all look the same. So we have Jaden, who is 3, looking at me like, we have Russell, who is turning 6, who has a slightly more mature looking at me like, and then we have my husband. Who's just like, and they're all like, they basically, in my brain, I think they'd be like, oh, the woman's crying again. Someone help the woman out. She's all alone in this house. And they'll ask like, everything okay? Is there anything I can do? So anytime I'm over here acting a fool or being exhausted, or not even exhausted, but like crying, because I'm a crier, I'm an emotional person. My baby just turned 6, y'all. It's insane. I always have 3 different age ranges of the same face looking at me like I have lost my mind. So I think maybe that's why I'm thinking about it more in terms of children. But yeah, but you know what? I will say this, just a quick divergence, because they're so used to, their mother crying and understanding like some tears are just happy, some tears are just sad, and you check on the person. I am helping them to be emotionally like sensitive individuals, like adults. Like they're not gonna be the person who just run away from crying. They're gonna ask if you're okay. They're gonna ask if you need some water. They're gonna ask you if you need space, if you want to talk. That's what they're gonna do. Because that's what I'm working on them doing. Right. And actually that links a lot into dehumanization because when it comes to human qualities, it's happiness, it's sadness, it's just depriving us of the ability to just have emotions in the first place. And I don't shy away from showing my children like the full range of emotions and talking to them about their feelings. And it's the same way with my husband too, and everyone I'm around. Like I say all the time, directness is kindness. But the reason why it's so important within the Black community is it's not something that's afforded to us often to be children. And we can go all the way to the history of enslavement, of like being put to when it came to labor and having little kids who were having labor and they're not even seen as children. They're seen as like property, right? And when it comes to adultification and dehumanization, the reason why they consistently go hand in hand is because they're used to justify the harm and the mistreatment that was against us. When you other a population of people so much, you can justify your treatment against them. There's no way you would treat another human being the way that Black people have been treated. So you dehumanize them. You refer to them as animals, and you use like infestation analogies, like, oh, they're going to come in droves and they're going to take all of your jobs, and you make it so that they can't be seen as having emotions. Like it very much is a tool, one of the many tools that contributes to enslavement consistently, like continuing, and laws being put up around it. But also, it's one of the reasons why individuals attempt to insulate themselves from the impact of not only what they saw like happening, like like the impact of it as a whole, as a system, but like emotionally, like to emotionally detach yourself from what you may feel as though individuals that look like you did to individuals that didn't look like you. And adultification and dehumanization really helps to create some form of a barrier so that you don't feel responsible, or you don't feel the emotions. Because imagine if you felt the full brunt of the emotions of what you or your ancestors did to a whole world of people solely due to like income and getting rich, like the genocide and assault and stealing land and murder. Like imagine if you felt the full brunt of like, how could anyone treat another human being like that? Like some people, they literally wouldn't be able to function. So I will always say that adultification and dehumanization are the fuel that keeps, biases and stereotypes and the inaccurate perception of white supremacy going. But one of the things is meant to cushion the pain from it. And the thing that makes it continue going is that dehumanization, like we've never been rehumanized as the people. When we think about the tools of adultification and dehumanization, I'll say propaganda. Whenever I say this to my students, like they'll think propaganda is like those old school after Uncle Sam needs you messages. But I want y'all to understand like everything is propaganda. And I don't say propaganda as like a negative connotation. It's kind of like how consequences also can be positive, right? Like I talk to my son about this all the time, of consequences and choices. Right. Like one thing that I say in the house all the time lately is like, if we have to do a task and we have to do something, or if it's something he is not 1,000%, in on, like the corny activity, I always say, well, you can choose to have fun or you can choose not to have fun. You know what I'm saying? Like having fun is a choice. Now we go into the grocery store. Okay. Now you can make a game out of it or you can sulk, but either way, we go into the grocery store. Like having fun is always a choice. Right. So I think the same way in terms of consequences. Consequences can be positive or negative, right? And propaganda can be positive or negative. And we think about the propaganda that like keeps this up. Don't think about like old school Uncle Sam messages. Think about movies and TV. Think about the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word ghetto or unprofessional. And where do you think that image comes from, especially if that image looks like you, right? Like it comes from centuries and concerted efforts to have us portrayed in TV shows a certain way, in movies a certain way, if we're even portrayed that way. It is from having stereotypes in media and pseudoscience, right? And when you dehumanize a people and you have it generationally so that we're perceived a certain way, it makes it that much harder, not only for other people to see us appropriately, because it is inappropriate the way that we are often like portrayed. It makes it harder for us to break it down too. So the same way that we were like broken down with these messages and the rampant amount of propaganda, we need to be built up in the same way. And it's one of the reasons why I typically advocate for so much amazing like media and film and books that center us, not as and not like as the kooky sidekick or the magical Negro or the person who just for some reason just like always has all of the answers, but we never learn enough about their storyline. As people who are centered in the experience, it was decades upon decades and centuries of breaking us down as like these stereotypes. So I want centuries upon centuries of combating it. So when people are like, how much representation is enough? It's not enough. It's never enough. What's the was it squabble up? No, is it mustard? I don't know. Y'all know what I'm talking about though. When they be like, it's not enough. That's how I feel every single time. Someone's like, well, how many shows are we going to have? It's not enough. It's never going to be enough. How many research experience, how much pseudoscience was there to put out there to state that we weren't human? I want like 5 times more stuff talking about our humanity. How many TV shows didn't have us as the character? I want 5 times more having us as the main character, right? Sometimes I think there's even more pressure to make sure we have these representations because we feel like it has to be perfect and it has to be good. But think about how many trash sitcoms are out there without Black people. God forbid we have one swing and a miss. Like I like every time I just finished, well, I didn't just finish watching Forever. I think I just finished watching it the second or third time. The series on Netflix, which will go down in history as one of my favorite shows, which is, you would think it's a little early on for it to go down in history as that, but it's not. It's not. It's one of my favorite shows. I will say the one thing I'm missing in the whole dialogue with the show Forever on Netflix is hearing from the youth. Like everyone my age and older is commenting on it. I might even send my students a text and ask them if they saw the show and like what they think about it. Because one of the main reasons why I think so many individuals are gravitating towards the show is because, you see like young adult shows that it makes you think about like your youth and the love and stuff like that. But I think it's a perfect example of appropriate and like healthy propaganda of like showing a young couple in love and a happy family, and people aren't being judged because of where they come from. They have like these pretty dynamic storylines, and you don't 1000% love or 1000% hate anyone. They're complex, and like all characters are meant to be complex. Even though I will say, no, I think some people had an issue with the dad too. I will say I think some people had an issue with the dad too at moments. But being able to see the complexity in that's what helps to address adultification and dehumanization. If we have so many negative stereotypes against us, like our generation and not even our generation, our culture, then you have to have things that counteract it. Because when we start to dehumanize ourselves, that's when we start to have issues that become like the roots of bigger issues, right? Like if you feel as though you're not allowed to express your emotions because like, how dare you have emotions? You should just be happy to be here in the first place. Then you start to have more emotional suppression. And then you struggle with addressing how you're feeling because you can't even acknowledge it in the first place because you were told so long not to cry, right? The way it happens in a lot of households is some people are given way too much responsibility. Like adultification is giving children way more responsibility than they should have. Because it's just like, oh, I was doing that as a child, or I was watching so when I was a child, without even acknowledging that like that's true. And that was also like super inappropriate, right? And when it comes to breaking down this realm of like adultification and dehumanization, it helps with parenting your youth, if they're in your life or not. Like when I say not if they're in your life or not, there are so many people who are in the process or I don't want to say in the business, but in the lives of children that aren't their parents. You got the cool auntie, you got the kicking uncle, you got the grandparents. Like when I'm talking about dealing with youth and rearing them in this way, it's not solely your children, but it also goes into like reparenting yourself, because there are so many things that they're still at the root of your choices. Like adultification can still be at the root of why you don't give yourself freedom or permission to grow. Dehumanization can be at the root of why you don't feel comfortable expressing your emotions. And I think it's really important to realize that like in breaking that down with our children and modeling that with our children, once again, when I say our, I mean our is like a community. Like the same way I would think about this for my boys, I would think about it for my nieces and my nephew. We also have to think about the way that we model it and reparenting ourselves, and validating like examples and things that we weren't allowed to have in the first place. Because I find that more and more I'm hearing about how people are trying to address like their mental health difficulties and really acknowledging how much they're struggling with things. And I get that. And it's hard to find the tools, not solely because the tools are hard to find, but the tools are hard to find for us, right? Like the one size fits all model of like where your depressive symptoms are coming from don't often mention adultification and dehumanization and feeling as though you have to earn respect. They don't often mention the fact that like as a people, no one, it's not only the fact that we have been treated terribly previously and treated terrible currently, and it's also the lack of acknowledgement of that poor treatment. It's not often like steeped in that. It's steeped in like the thoughts and the feelings and the behaviors of like generalized stuff. So it's one of the reasons why I make it a point to state that like I specialize in Black health and well-being because it is different mental health wise. It's one of the reasons why I prioritize putting resources on my website that center the Black experience. But I think it's also one of the reasons why I will always state that community is going to be more important than anything. I bet you by the end of this season, you guys will be able to finish the statement. But like, therapy is not the only path to healing, but whatever path you take, it will be paved with community. It will be paved with community because part of the stressor is not having someone else to talk to about this. We're in a world where it's not even just the harm was caused, but it's like the lack of acknowledgement. So when we talk about adultification and dehumanization, not only with children and parenting them in a way of respect and allowing them to take the time to process their emotions, slowing down when it comes to responses, understanding that they need to be affirmed now more than ever when there are so many tools in place to take their representation out of the world. It also starts with you, like as the parent, as the person listening. How do you center your humanity, right? It's not possible to recognize the humanity in your children or anyone else if you don't recognize it in yourself. Do you provide yourself the opportunity to express your emotions? Do you understand that your worth is inherent, not a result of productivity? It can be really hard to extend compassion to others past what you extend to yourself. So do you extend compassion to yourself? Do you think that one mistake means you might as well throw it all away? Or do you acknowledge your humanity and the fact that everyone makes mistakes? I always mention to people who say that they're perfectionists is like perfectionism is antithetical to humanity. It's not possible to be perfect. We're not robots. So many times when I see like Black women stating that they're perfectionists, I'm like, right. Okay, so like, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of? A lot of times it's rooted in stereotypes. A lot of times people don't want it. They want everything to be perfect because they don't want to be seen as lazy. They don't want to be seen as the person who didn't deserve to be here. They're a diversity hire. And like, here's the thing with the diversity hire thing. One, it's BS. But two, they done took the diversity out of everything. And, jobs are still being had. So I'm just gonna put that out there. But it's like a lot of times it's rooted in stereotypes. Like you want to combat the stereotypes by overworking. We build up our, there was a scene in Forever on Netflix where they were like, you can't just be good. You have to be undeniable. We shield ourselves with these armor, and the armor is always like prestige. It's scholarships and it's degrees and it's certification and it's perfect hair. And then what we're doing is like that armor makes it, you become more uncomfortable in your own skin because you have to build this up. And that's dehumanizing too. So when I think about the ways that I would address this, or I try to address this daily with clients, with myself, a lot of it is affirmations. Like my worth is not tied up in my productivity. A lot of it is slowing down. I get it. We're in a capitalistic society where productivity is prized over people. But I make a lot of like poor decisions when I am sped up. Like we are all told haste makes waste. And me slowing down to process my decisions with things really helped me to realize the root of where that decision came from. Me taking on that additional work task. Is it because I feel as though in order to be worthy to be in this space, I have to overwork myself? Who says that I'm not worthy in the first place? I got this job the same way everybody else got this job. Is me doing more work, making it so that I insulate myself from the thoughts that like, I always feel like I have to prove my worth, but so-and-so done sent emails with emojis and typos and they don't even seem like they are concerned about losing their job. I don't even know how we are working at the same place, right? Like when you slow down and think about it, when you get to the roots of your behavior, which unfortunately a lot of times happen when we're ridiculously burnt out, are the roots based in adultification and dehumanization, feeling as though you're not worthy of being in this place in the first place, and slowing down to think about how to address that. Because every place also just doesn't deserve you, right? When I talk about affirmations and when I talk about the messaging and making statements, what I'm talking about is socialization. It's the way that we are providing messages to ourselves and to the people in our community, like verbally or not verbally. Like it's not only telling someone that their hair is beautiful, which is the verbal part of it, but it's also smiling when you see someone else's hair that looks like yours. It's the nonverbal part. It's the cues. And there's two different types. There is protective and proactive. And they're both really, really important. Proactive is more so when we think of when we have the messages of things like Black is beautiful, such as, messages of things like Black is beautiful and complimenting people on their hair. And protective is more so the things that are immersed in protection, I would say. And fear and racism, it's messages talking about things like if you're dealing with the police, don't run, don't reach, don't resist, and things that are meant to keep us safe. The reason why they're so important when it comes to adultification and dehumanization and the way that we rear our children is that there's so much research that states that when children are younger, we are more likely to give them the positive messages, the proactive racial socialization, those happy messages. But as they get older, fear ensues within ourselves. And we start giving them less of those happy messages about our culture and our heritage and our ancestry. And we start giving them more messages about how to protect themselves. And that's because we know that they're not going to be seen as children for long. I think it's important to realize that we need to balance that not only with children, but within ourselves. Because we need to have positive messages within our culture in every single way, shape, and form. And if we start to pivot to this realm of only talking about negative messages with our children and only talking about negative messages with our youth and only talking about ways to protect themselves against oppression and racism and being twice as good, we really take away their freedom and their joy. And I think one of the biggest things that we're fighting for every single day, not only just for children, but for ourselves too, is to have that certain level of freedom. I think it's one of the reasons why so many times you'll hear people talk about like the most, I don't want to say mundane activities, but activities that like the sole purpose is just joy, like painting or going hiking or being out with nature. And people will say, oh, that's some white stuff. But when you think about that message, it's because when we think about tasks and we think about doing things, they always have to have like an outcome, like an output, like it has to be a check or it has to be something that contributes to something else, like just walking just to walk in nature. Not only because of our, justified fear of like nature and, not being able to reach out if you need help, but just being able to just walk for fun. I think the underlying message has always been like doing stuff just for the fun of it. That is some white stuff. We are not allotted those freedoms. And that's dehumanizing too, because that's an emotion, that's joy, and we're deserving of joy. So when we think about this, not only with children, but also with ourselves, I want us to think about the ways that we also humanize ourselves, like the ways that we center our importance and our humanity, when we acknowledge our emotions, when we not acknowledge our children's emotions, when we state that it's okay to make mistakes, when we think about the fact that, our worth is inherent and it's not due to productivity. When we do that, we need to think about that as a form of resistance as well. I know resistance is like the word of 2024 and 2025. It's going to be the word for the next 4 years. Please, God, don't make it another 8 years. But we need to think about it individually too, because no matter what happens to us individually, it's going to happen to us as a community because we're all linked. So you deciding to say no to doing an additional task and feeling like you have to, do extra work to earn your place here, even though you already earned your place there, can be modeling for other Black people. It can also change your mindset and the way you see things with other people around you. And it can create more of a community of people who don't feel as though they need to justify their place anywhere. We're worthy of being in any space just as much as anyone else. So that's all I got today, guys. We're talking about adultification and dehumanization. Another light topic. I think we're going to have to do an episode where you guys can just ask me questions. All the topics have been pretty heavy. I hope you can feel the aspect of them being steeped in Black joy, but it's heavy because like we're in a pretty heavy time. And I really feel as though like every episode, I'm going to tell you some resources. I'm going to tell you how to change your mindset so you can kind of just like not only take over the world, but take over your mind and pay it forward. So everyone, I hope you guys have a fantastic day, evening, week, all of that. Remember to be kind to yourselves. 2 steps forward and 1 step back is still 1 step forward. That's just math. I'm Dr. Martin, and have a good one.